now it's my pleasure to introduce two people who are really operating at the top tier of corporate communications, and they've been hearing from so many different companies like Allen's, that kind of company, and others, all different sizes. If I ever get into trouble, this is certainly my dream team. First, we have Richard Edelman. He's president and CEO of Edelman. It's a global communications firm. It's got about 6,000 employees in more than 60 offices around the world. Also with us is Judy Smith, a renowned crisis management expert, founder and president of Smith & Company, a full-service crisis management and communications firm. So welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. I do want to kick off our discussion with a quick poll, just kind of gauge our audience. And the question is, everybody, if you can do this poll, how can CEOs best demonstrate leadership during this time? The choices are clear and transparent communication to all stakeholders, working with other CEOs and policymakers to implement solutions, prioritizing employee health, safety, and job security, and then the fourth choice, finding ways to support communities. And so let's start there. And I'm going to start with you, Judy. What do you think? What do you think CEOs, how they can best demonstrate leadership during this time?
I think a few ways. I think number one, demonstrating independent leadership, right? I think most people really respond to the fact that there's not a reliance on information that's not accurate, right? That you want to rely on medical information. I think that's one. So seeing CEOs make their own decisions despite other information. I think the other thing that is important that people want to see from CEOs, and it goes back to something Alan was saying, was, what structure, what tools, what safety measures are you going to put in place for employees? Because those are people that are on the front line. What we're hearing from companies and employees, a recent survey said that over 55% of employees were afraid and concerned to come back. And so I think that is going to be critical for any CEO in how to address that issue. So I think those two key points are important.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'm hearing that a lot about people, just from colleagues, from peers, from family, about the nervousness going back to work. Richard, come on in on this. What's your thought about how CEOs can best demonstrate leadership during this time?
So I think in the first phase, it was about working from home, protecting the employees. Second phase was what kind of products we can offer. For example, HP sending 3D printers to make masks at hospitals that were running out. And now the third phase is going to be return to work. And I think actually business has been in the passenger seat and let government drive the car. And in this next phase, we can't be hurried. We have to be sure that we're actually ready to go back to work, that it is safe. We also need to change our workplaces so that at Edelman, for instance, we're going to run an A and B shift that has therefore half as many people in the office at a time. And so we have to show different. Again, if you're opening restaurants, be like Starbucks so that you don't actually have any people sitting in the store. You basically do takeout for a while until the COVID passes. But CEOs actually now have to stand up and speak up. We actually found that there wasn't a single op-ed from a CEO for the past 3 weeks in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, or the FT. CEOs have been so bunkered and focused on their own operations, they have to speak publicly. They have to show public leadership now to explain what the new normal is going to be. It can't be just a return to the old way.
Yeah, and yes, please, Judy, come on in. No, come on in.
I was going to say regarding the CEOs and leadership. I think to your point about being visible, right? The CEOs that we have talked to are not only concerned about their employees and other stakeholders, but also to what they can do, as Alan was saying, on a bigger landscape, right? And a bigger picture to be able to help and assist. And I think that also helps to define their personal brand as a CEO and their company brand as well.
And what's interesting is, and this came up with Alan, and I'm curious what you guys are hearing from your clients and what advice you're giving them about this balance between protecting your employees, doing right by your broader community, whether it's your supply chain, your consumers, your customers, versus you got to make money, right? And there's going to be pressure to do that in an economic environment that is subpar. So, Richard, what are you hearing about how do you balance that?
You can't allow a trade-off between health and economic growth. We have to find a way to make sure that we change our business model in such a way as to emphasize the products that will help, cure or deal with COVID. That we have to be about solutions and not selling. It's really a trap for business to be seen as pushing for too early a return to normal. Let the governors do that. That's not the job of CEOs. CEOs should make sure that their businesses run well. Also, trust is now conveyed locally. The most trusted institution is my employer, and therefore the CEO has to speak very frequently to his or her employees so that they actually then can spread information to the communities. You asked about that in the beginning. There's a
Mm-hmm.
big skepticism about mainstream media, well, whether it's politicized, not Bloomberg, by the way. And the reality is that people
Good
on the left,
answer.
people on the left have a certain predilection for MSNBC, on the right for Fox. And
Right.
where are we getting quality information? And it's not necessarily from government. So therefore, business has to fill the void. Be sure that it's the CEO plus the health experts in the company, and make sure that there's a frequency, a cadence, so that people can count on us. For example, at Edelman, I'm appearing every week to our people with Dr. David Nabarro, who's an advisor to the WHO, about progress on COVID. What's Edelman doing? What are we seeing? So that our people can then know what's good for their families and also for their clients.
A lot of communication. Judy, what do you think?
I totally agree.
Think we're having a little bit of audio trouble there. We're going to try and fix Judy's audio, and then we'll bring her right back in. Richard, I want to go to a question, if I may, from our audience, because one was specifically for you. This is from Evan Makovsky, and he runs his own integrated communications company. He says, what do you think the opportunities are for PR firms coming out of this crisis? Broadly speaking, what types of messaging do you expect to be in demand by clients for firms like yours?
Hi, Evan. Look, at the moment, there's this sense among marketers that brands should be quiet during COVID, that it's not good to put your ads next to disturbing material on news or other. That's a mistake. Brands have to speak up now. Now, we actually did a special trust report, and we found that 90% of people expect brands to talk to them frequently, to give lower prices to those who are affected by COVID, whether in health or losing their job, and that brands are a critical source of information. It's this idea of brand democracy. So I think that communications firms should be pushing their clients to do great ideas. Example, for Unilever, we're doing a campaign called Day of Service, where on May 21st, Unilever will donate all of its production from its 14 factories in the US to people who are disadvantaged through Feeding America. That's the indication of the power of a good idea, well executed with clients. So Evan, go get them.
And I want to bring her back into this. Judy, go ahead and respond to, I know we were talking earlier about that balance between doing the right thing, protecting your workers, protecting all of your stakeholders. And then also you got to be profitable, and you're going to do that in a global economic environment that's subpar. What's the balance? What are you hearing? What are you telling your clients?
Sure. Richard is correct, which is that we can't trade off health and safety for profits, right? What we're telling our clients is, yes, you have to keep your business running, but you need to do it in a way that is consistent with your values side, what employees want to hear.
I think we're having some problems again with Judy's audio. So we'll try and fix that. Richard, I want to go on to some other questions that are coming in because you and Judy both run companies. You're leaders of companies. You have your own employees to be concerned about. Tell us about some of the things that you're doing specifically to make the steps you're taking to make sure that your office environment is safe for people when they come back. And that's coming
Well,
in. Actually, we have a question. That's Walter Johnson, Acme United Corporation, sending that in.
So we're going to have staggered work hours. We're going to allow people to, come early or come late, go home late or early. We're going to close the cafeteria. We're going to make sure that there's a protocol for the coffee machine. People are going to be asked to wear masks, and we're going to be wearing gloves. And we're going to not have more than 4 or 5 people in a meeting. And we're not going to allow global travel initially. We're going to have to find a protocol for calling on clients such that there's some kind of temperature test or other that is instituted at our clients. We're asking people also, if they feel lousy, take a sick day. We'll give you as many as you want, because the basic mentality is quite, usually like the Marines, tough it out, make it through. No, we don't want that. We want to fundamentally change the contract with our workforce.
Airways, will we fundamentally change how we work in the longer term, or is it hard to say? And I think, we've all been having these discussions about working from home. I had a conversation with Meg Whitman. She's like, I've been working in an office for more than 40 years. Here I am at home and I'm pretty productive. And I'm doing radio shows. I'm doing conferences at home that I never thought I could do. And they go fairly well, although we're having a few technical problems, as we know. What do you think? Do they stay with us longer term? Will people travel less, or is it too early to say?
There's a big question mark around conferences and also travel. Last year, I traveled 130 days. Is that the new normal for a CEO? Not so sure. But I love brainstorms for clients and coming up with ideas, sitting around a table on a whiteboard. And I miss that. I also miss the camaraderie and the kind of necessity of human contact. And so I am trying to evaluate how much office space over time Edelman's going to need and how many offices we're going to need. And, also I've made a lot of journalist relationships by entertaining and having personal connection. And, having a beer on Zoom works if you know the person already, but it's not so easy to meet new people that way.
Definitely changes the dynamics. We do have Judy. I know we only have her by audio. We're having some trouble with the video side of it. But Judy, what are your thoughts about, first of all, as a leader of a company, you have to think about your employees too coming back. They're nervous. So what steps are you taking to make them feel safe? And do you think the way we're working and how we work changes in the long term, or is it too early to know?
I think it is going to change, and I'll take the second question first. I think it is going to change in the long term. The companies that we are talking to are like, well, we didn't actually think we could work from home. And now we see that we can, and that is successful. So I think that companies are going to start to rethink that. The way that companies are thinking about bringing back employees are more is obviously staggered, but they're looking at groups that actually work together, right? So you're not going to bring back all employees back, but perhaps you might bring back the advertising and marketing department together. For me, as a leader of a communications company, what I am looking at is how we come back. Do we come back all at once? As Richard said, I am looking at whether we need all the real estate that we have that we're currently using now. We are going to, when we come back, make sure that we do it in a staggered way. But I'm going to take my own advice as I continue to communicate, that it has to be visible, right? People have to see you. It has to be transparent. I think it has to be authentic. And you have to have a balance, I think, between realism and being optimistic. And you have to make sure that people understand that that you care and that their health and safety and well-being is critical. Depending on your size of your company, everybody can't do that. But one of the needs that we saw at my company was that a lot of the employees didn't have masks and just were in a panic about it. And so as a company, we provided that to our employees.
So here's a great question coming in. Ronaldo Garcia with Siemens in Colombia asking, which is the main challenge that you see to motivate the people to continue contributing under the current situation of lockdown? And Richard, I guess it has to do with working people at home, your managers trusting you. I have to say, I've been as busy as ever before and probably more productive because I don't have as many interruptions. But I am curious about how you manage people who are working from home. It's a little different.
Well, you have to have a broad approach. I mean, I have a woman who works with me on the Unilever business, and she has little kids. And if at a given point, we're supposed to have a call, and a kid is not perfect at the moment, she has to deal with that. And I said, call me back, and you have to be flexible. And people are doing conference calls from closets and otherwise. It's a very different deal. I get surround sound from a parakeet from my stepson. I mean, it's not the usual deal. Got to have a sense of humor. But I think the most important thing for employees is tell them the truth. If your business is going to be challenged and you're going to have to reduce salaries or furloughs or whatever, be direct, explain the business situation, make it entirely clear that you have every interest in making sure that people are fine, but that they deserve honesty and directness and frequency of communication, because the biggest challenge at this time of COVID is misinformation. People literally pass rumors around as if they're truth. And, literally a rumor from Malaysia about you have ice cream and it causes your throat to open to COVID. So ice cream sales plunge. That kind of need to respond immediately to false is urgent for what PR people do.
That's exactly what Alan Joe talked about with someone who works in his home that had heard from her circle that ice cream was bad and they weren't eating ice cream. Judy, got a question for you. This comes from John Dorson of Akara Strategy. It says, apart from crisis management, what has been the most crucial demand in terms of communications?
Oh, wow. I think apart from crisis management, for us, the most crucial demand really is helping CEOs navigate the balance of all of their stakeholders, right? And the other crucial demand is making sure that those CEOs are making the right decision based on the right information. And so what we did to help that is we partnered with Johns Hopkins, and what we've been doing is providing briefings to all of our clients so that they are getting straightforward scientific information. And that's been really helpful, because early on that was very paralyzed, and even now. So those are those kinds of things that we're doing.
I also do wonder, and this is a question that's come from several of our audience right now, just wondering about life after and what does it mean for consumer habits? I mean, you guys have to advise clients and companies. What do you think consumer habits are like on the other side of this, Richard?
So, for example, we work with a hotel chain, and their initial instinct was, let's try and open the properties. And we said, no, you need an interim step where you have a serious health expert go around and develop a protocol that says, we have a community health test. We have a temperature test for employees. We also have criteria for those who are coming to our property, meaning guests, because any one of those can contribute to an outbreak. And so there's a 3-step: close, healthcare, reopen. And the reopen is, in fact, has to be done in a different way. So we said, make your products from the local community more, so that, in fact, you are supporting the community in need. And so, anyway, it's reconsidering your business, change the reality of your business. It's not a communications problem, it is a business problem.
Judy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a business problem, but I also think on the hotel side, let's think about this. If you are deciding that you're going to travel and you're going to figure out what hotel you're going to stay at, you want to find out what policies and procedures they have put in place to make me as a visitor safe. So I do think communication does have a component to play in that, in terms of just consumers and weighing your options.
Are both of you telling your clients to plan? I talked about with Alan Jope about this, to plan for a second wave. Richard, are you?
Oh,
yeah, absolutely, because it's more likely than not to happen. I don't want business to be blamed. I want business to be ready. And it's important that we make sure our products are helping solve. And it's also critical that we establish that we've thought this through, that we have a protocol, that we've been following it, and that we're going to deal very quickly if there's an outbreak. We're going to go back to home. We're going to follow the best public health guidance and try to be part of the solution.
Judy,
yeah.
are you doing
And
the
I
same
also,
thing? Yeah.
Yes, we are. But I would say that a good bit of companies that we are talking to, because they know that there's going to be a second wave, they have decided to wait until that second wave comes and passes. Because even though employees and all of us, staying at home certainly has impacted all of us, but most people are saying, if I just have to stay in for 3 more weeks or 4 more weeks because we know that something else is coming, that it's better to do that, wait until it passed, so that when you come out to the point that was raised, you get hit with this onslaught of increase in virus and death and tolls on employees. Most companies that we are talking to are waiting, or if they are going out, are not doing any more than 10% of their workforce.
Smart question coming in, and I know we've got to wrap up soon, but I want to get this in. Derek Serpaglia in Italy is saying, how do you balance the frequency and timing of internal and external communications relating to the crisis? Is too much information counterproductive? Judy, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think too much information is counterproductive. I think what people are looking for is consistency and accurate information, right? So to the point that was raised earlier, we don't need to pass rumors around or information that we can't confirm. But I think a regular cadence on communicating to stakeholders, employees, is critical. I don't think you can overdo it with, straightforward information.
Richard, your thoughts?
You have to have a regular cadence. You have to have something that people can count on. I think that information from government, from the media, from social, and then from the company become a picture, and they need to square up. People don't listen and learn the first time they hear something. They actually have deep skepticism today. And so it's like the 5th time that you hear something that you actually believe it. So we need to keep going back with messages and also allow people to have a conversation with you, that you set up a platform for questions, that you actually listen, learn, and adapt your system if in fact it's a better suggestion.
Yeah, and I've got to say just one last thing. I have been amazed at companies and leaders who are out there And then there are those who have just gone dark. And I think in the long term, that will ultimately hurt them. One last question. We've got to wrap up just quickly. What do we as leaders need to be asking ourselves in this kind of environment with what we've gone through and what we face on the other side? Judy, let me start with you.
I think the first question you want to ask yourself really is, what are we missing, right? What should we be doing that we're not doing? What should we be prepared for that we're not prepared for? And I think that they should also ask themselves, what is the future going to bring, and how do we need now to start to pivot? Because people keep saying going back to normal, going back to the way that we were, it's not possible, at least not for a very long time.
Richard?
We've made a big promise about stakeholder capitalism. Let's see business deliver. And that means we better take account of people's fears of being made redundant, also losing jobs to machines, and their own health. We've got to absolutely make sure that we're seen as a force for good. And a key part of that is talking and helping frame a future that people can believe in.
Right. Sounds so simple, right? But we've got to get that right. Judy, thank you so much. Richard, thank you so much. Really a lot of great advice, and really appreciate your time this morning. Do stay well. We do want to thank both Richard and Judy. Great conversation. Alan Jope also for his time and insights as well. And thank you all for tuning in, participating. Really wonderful questions and really spot on in terms of the issues and concerns that we all have right now. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to all of them. I could have done this for probably 5 hours, but do keep the conversation going. Reach out to Twitter and on the Bloomberg Live page on LinkedIn. This is a great way to keep it all going. We do love feedback. We know we had some problems technology-wise. It's kind of the new world order we're working in. So do take a minute to fill out our exit survey. It's going to appear on your screen at the end. We do love your feedback and love to hear about how we're doing, where we could be better. And then for ongoing COVID-19 coverage and other stories about the pandemic, we've got some great coverage on the Bloomberg and how it's impacting our world economy, how it's impacting world business. Follow Bloomberg on Twitter @business. Visit us at Bloomberg.com. And be sure to join me and my co-host, Jason Kelly, every day for Bloomberg Business Week on the radio. We're 2 to 6 p.m. Wall Street time. You can also find some of our other interviews with top business leaders on our YouTube page. And for more events like this, we're doing a lot of coverage, trying to help our community here. Please visit BloombergLive.com for the latest offerings. We'd love to have you join us on more of those events as well. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday. Do stay safe, be well, and we do hope to see you again real soon. Take care, everybody.